but the wider region and the continent. That is why we continue to invest in trade infrastructure and logistics, tourism, aviation, financial services, and technology, while continuously improving the business environment that enables companies to invest, operate, and grow. Together, these investments and reforms make it easier for Rwandan, African, and global companies to invest, operate, and scale across borders. This is the spirit in which Rwanda welcomes you, as partners in a shared continental project, as leaders with the responsibility to turn ambition into action, and as builders of the scale, trust, and execution Africa needs. Over the next 2 days, may Kigali be a place of serious conversations, new partnerships, and concrete decisions. I wish you all a productive and successful Africa CEO Forum. Thank you very much.
A big round of applause for Jean-Guy Africa, the CEO of the Rwanda Development Board. I would like to now welcome Mactar Diop, the Managing Director of the International Finance Corporation, for a few words. Mactar, where are you? There you are. Good to see you. Lovely to see you.
Your Excellency President Paul Kagame, Your Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Your Excellency President Mohamed Sheikh El Ghazouani, Your Excellency President Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, Your Excellency President Chapo, Your Excellency President Mamadi Doumbouya, Your Excellency Vice President Ndabago Atlai, Prime Minister of Côte d'Ivoire Robert Begré Mabé, distinguished guests, business leaders, ministers. It's an honor to return to Kigali, His Excellency President Paul Kagame and the people of Rwanda. Thank you for this extraordinary welcome. Kigali commands attention not only of what others say, but because of what it achieves, a vision rendered in concrete reality. I would like to thank our co-hosts, Jeune Afrique and Abid Ben Ahmed, for the work they've been doing together for the past years. If you allow me, I would like to recognize someone that I'm proud to call a long-standing brother, Sidi Ould Tah, President of the African Development Bank. Sidi. Sidi Ould Tah, across Mission 300, infrastructure corridors, capital mobilization for our continent's most fragile economy, we stand on the same front lines, waging the same battle. Our partnership is not protocol. It's a strategic imperative of two African brothers, of two institutions who care for development. I'm honored, Sidi, to count you as a both partner and a brother in arms. Thank you. Shukran. We gather at a moment of profound global disruption. Conflicts spreading across multiple regions are not abstract events. They strike our economies directly. Food costs are surging, foreign reserves depleted, debt escalating, capital withdrawing. These shocks underscore with an urgency impossible to dismiss one essential truth. There is no sustainable development without sound macroeconomic foundation. Resilience is not assembled during a crisis, it's forged before one arrives through fiscal discipline and other instruments that we know. The nation best equipped to absorb today's shock are those who have the discipline to lay those foundations when conditions allowed. Yet, through all this turbulence, one reality has never been sharper. Emerging markets are no longer the margin of the global system. They are its engine. Sub-Saharan Africa represents 60% of the world population, under 25. Within a generation, 1 in 3 workers on this planet will be African, 1 out of 3. And we know the sources of jobs. 9 in 10 are generated by the private sector in developing countries. So the question before us is therefore direct and pressing. Can we link African talent, its capital, its market, into engines of employment, and at which scale? World Bank President Ajay Banga has anchored the World Bank Group strategy around 5 priorities. Those 5 priorities come from his consultation with the head of states. These 5 sectors are engines of structural transformation capable of absorbing the vast cohort of young people entering the labor force. These are equally the defining pillars of what IFC is doing in Africa. Let me just break it down quickly for you. Energy and infrastructure. No economy industrialized without dependable power. Through Mission 300, we are committed to bringing electricity to 300 million Africans through regional grids, mini-grids, off-grid systems, and with private capital at the center of it. We need integrated energy markets that keep the light on. These are also important for economic development. We need to accelerate the participation in transmission. This is the next frontier. We are seeing a lot of people investing in generation, but the private sector doesn't access investment in transmission, which will be critical. But we need to do it with all sorts of energy. And I would like to thank and once again congratulate Rwanda for taking the leadership in diversifying the source of energy for the continent, with including nuclear as an option for African countries. Thank you for the leadership, Mr. President. Agriculture. Africa holds 60% of the world untapped arable land. Global food demand will rise by 50% over the next 3 decades. Through AgriConnect, we are channeling private sector capital money into agriculture value chain, and this from input to processing through a logistic and market access. When agriculture shifts from subsistence production to integrated chains, it generates unemployment throughout the value chain, anchor natural economies, and feed downstream industries. The goal is income resilience and job at scale. Let me turn about something which is important because it's shaped a lot of our economic history in the continent. Corridors and connectivity. Africa corridors were largely built during the colonial period for a single objective: extract commodities and move them to the coast and transform, with no industrial dividend for local populations. That logic must be buried. The Lobito Corridor, Simandu, this initiative carry a different vision. A corridor that carries raw or generates handling work. A corridor that carries processed steel, manufactured goods, generate industry, transport agricultural product, transform agricultural product is development. This section is important. It's a decision, and we need to build on it. Corridors are not only to export raw material for Africa. They are here to create jobs and make our economy more resilient. Healthcare, human capital, and skill. Investing in health means investing in the most elemental input of any economy. Africa's health systems are underfunded and heavily reliant on imports. The private sector has a transformative part to play. Community clinics, telemedicine, local pharmaceutical production. If I want to be frank, something we do not say enough is that a healthy workforce is only as productive as a skilled workforce. And I remember vividly during the crisis of COVID, our President Kagame gathered the leadership here to ensure that there is independence in the production of vaccine needed for our population. Thank you for all the leaders here who have been showing that Africa can take things in their hand when they need to have it. But I would like to say something about vocational and technical education. These are essential elements to development as well as digital literacy and entrepreneurship. These are the foundation, I would say the infrastructure of human capital and must command the same urgency as road and power lines. Let's talk now about something which is important also, critical mineral and value-added manufacturing and small AI. Africa cannot continue shipping raw materials only to repurchase them as finished goods at a premium. Cobalt, lithium, manganese, graphite, Africa critical mineral situates this continent at the center of the global energy transition. Our collective obligation is to ensure that strategic position yields local wealth and industrial employment, not merely extractive income. This is a matter of sovereignty. But the discussion on critical mineral may be joined by a discussion on artificial intelligence. What is what I call small AI? Precision, context-specific application built to address concrete African realities. AI tools that help a smallholder farmer in the Sahel identify the optimal planting windows. An AI system that allow a district clinic to detect malaria faster and more reliably. An AI model trained on local languages, local data, local conditions. These are not distant aspirations. They are deployable today and represent a remarkable opportunity to compress decades of development in sector where we have historically lagged. The mineral powering global AI hardware lies largely beneath African soil. It would be a historic failure of imagination if Africa provided the raw inputs for the AI revolution while remaining a consumer rather than a co-architect of its rewards. Small AI is our portal into that future, and we must step through it. Now talking about our private sector in Africa, the SMEs, the regional champion, the African capital market. In Africa, jobs are created by small and medium enterprises, and we don't talk about it enough. These first and second generation family enterprises that I saw in Guinea, in Nigeria, in Cote d'Ivoire, in East Africa, they are providing jobs and livelihood for our youth, rich communities that large corporations cannot reach. They rely on them to reach those communities. These futures hinge on one condition: integration into national, regional, and international value chain. The African Free Trade Agreement provides a legal architecture, 49 ratification, but the agreements do not generate employment. Transactions do. For this framework to become economic reality, businesses must be able to trade, finance, insure, and export across borders efficiently, affordably, and without bureaucratic obstacle at every crossing. To cultivate regional champions, two conditions are not negotiable. First, dismantle every barrier to cross-border investment, whether direct or through equity markets. Capital transfer restriction, double taxation, regulatory fragmentation, stock exchange incompatibilities. These are policy choices, not economic laws. They can be reversed, and they must be reversed. Second, Africa's great national enterprises must open their ownership to African savings. African pension funds, sovereign wealth funds administer hundreds of billions of dollars. That capital exists. What is absent is the infrastructure to deploy it across borders into productive enterprises at continental scale. When companies list or open tranches to local institutional investors, they retain savings that currently drain our continent. The exchanges of Casablanca, Lagos, Nairobi, Abidjan, Kigali, or Joburg have an indispensable role. African savings must finance African growth. These SMEs face 4 structural obstacles we can no longer set aside. Insufficient equity capital, with banks insisting on collateral these enterprises cannot furnish, a governance gap as formalization requires deep transformation in management and planning, regulatory environment that penalize SME disproportionately, and finally, the generational transfer of wealth. The silent crisis of African entrepreneurship, past the second or third generation, the overwhelming of African family business vanish. This is not merely a family loss. It's an hemorrhage of economic capital, institutional memory, and employment that reverberates across the entire community. I direct an ambitious appeal to researchers, sociologists, business schools, and African international alike. Treat these as a serious domain of inquiry and research. The roots are as sociological as they are financial, family structure, inheritance norms, succession disputes. These dynamics must be embedded in our business school curricula so that the next generation inherits not just enterprises, but the capacity to sustain them. I want to say that our institution, IFC, will be transforming. We will be increasing our ability to mobilize international capital and domestic capital to address all these challenges. And the local champion for us are at the heart of our initiative. We have mobilized and invested $14 billion in 2025 in Africa, and we will continue doing that and accelerate that path. So now, let me conclude by saying the following. The talent is here, the capital exists, the ambition in this room is undeniable. What has been missing is execution at scale. The kind of scale that turned energy into factories into jobs, and local enterprises into continental champions. This decade must be the one where Africa stops exporting its potential and starts delivering its performance. I need 3 things. First, commitment and concrete. Not a letter of intent, not another memorandum that collects dust in a drawer, an investment decision, a structured partnership, a first disbursement before the year is out. The time for deliberation is behind us. The time of action is now. Push back on us. Push back on us. If IFC, the institution that I lead, is not making it easy enough for you to enter a market, tell us. If our financial structure are too rigid, say so, and say it loudly. We are here to adapt to your reality, not the other way around. Our value is not being right. Our value is being useful. Let's play it on the long game. Emerging markets reward conviction and patience. Every investor who has built a durable position in Africa is one who refuses to retreat when volatility strikes. So let me say a last sentence before I end. Africa has never lacked potential. It has never lacked vision. What has too often been missing is a collective will to act. Together, now, without waiting for permission from history, that changes today. The arc bends not because the world wills it, but because we do. Africa is not a frontier market waiting to be discovered. This is a defining growth story of the 21st century. The question is no longer whether Africa can deliver at scale. The question is whether we will have the courage together to rise to the scale this moment demands. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maktar. And I have to say, engaging with you through these years, and a lot of the people that I interview and companies that I interview, the big realization is that without the IFC's support, a lot of the projects that we see on the continent would not have happened. So the work that you're doing at the IFC and the IFC as a whole has been such an important part of the African growth story and mobilizing capital. And then importantly, such a big supporter of the Africa CEO Forum over the years. And without you and the IFC, a lot of what we see here today would not be possible. So please, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Maktar Diop. Having you at the helm of the IFC has been an absolute blessing for all of us here in the room, so thank you, sir. I am honored now to welcome His Excellency the President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. So please join me for a fireside chat. Mr. President, an honor. Thank you, sir. Please take a seat. Fantastic to be back.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I always feel very welcome here, and it's interesting to come at this time in the world. I mean, we've seen so many cycles, but I have to say, possibly nothing like this has ever happened in the global economy. And I'm wondering how you are looking at not only the short-term trends, the long-term trends, but also, we know the old adage, within every crisis there's always opportunity, and there's a lot of agency on the continent that we haven't seen before. So how are you weighing things up, and what do you think the moment calls for the African continent and for you in Rwanda?
Well, thank you, Eleni, and welcome to Kigali. But let me take this opportunity to welcome and thank each one of the leaders here, heads of state, vice presidents, prime ministers, senior executives of different industries. I want to welcome you to Kigali and thank you very much for honoring our invitation and being here with us. Of course, I want to thank Amir and his team, Jeune Afrique, for having thought of this idea to bring people together in this manner that has been operational for a number of years. I want to appreciate the work they are doing, and also the comments Amir made earlier, which really encapsulate all that we need to say and maybe based on to do a number of things. So I thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Now, back to the question. There will always be crises. We have had centuries of different things happening. We had slave trade, we had colonial times, then there are wars, then there are pandemics, then there are all kinds of things. They will happen all the time. It's a matter of time, and there are these cycles so we are in a different cycle now that is driven geopolitically, and we have to contend with that. But that also for Africa keeps being a reminder of our position. Where do we stand in this global positioning? And we have had many people contribute ideas and very accurately educating us what we need to do and what we need to be thinking about. But we can't stay there. We need to learn from this. We need to shape what we are doing for ourselves, and action should lead us in the right direction and how to deal with these crises. So But for Africa, let me say, we have to leverage our competitive advantage, and there are a number of them. So why is Africa always at a disadvantage? When you look back, you see where Africa has been lacking this or that. But really, why, when we have almost everything? If you look at in the area of green energy, and this continent is home to 60% of solar potential. 60% is home to that. Africa is home to that. Then if you look at the critical minerals that I talked about, all of them, or the majority, are on the continent for making batteries and so on and so forth. And different powers are fighting over that. But Africa, that has a lot of that, is silent or losing most of it cheaply to those who have the power and have know what they want to do. Look at human capital. In terms of human capital, Africa has abundance of that. In fact, whether maybe by now already or in a few years to come, Africa will be having the largest middle class in the world. So how can we have these resources and then we are here wondering how to overcome some of the challenges that are brought by the geopolitics that we talk about, or the crises that we see happening in every... So we need to come together and do something about it. It's doing something about it. The rest we know. And Amir earlier on was talking about what we lose by not doing a number of things. I think we lose a lot more even by not doing what we have to do.
And it's a really important point. It's time of action. And I have to say, when you mention pandemics, there was a wake-up call, and we've seen so much shift and change. But, watching what's been going on with the way African leaders have been approaching bad deals that are getting on their table. I mean, Zimbabwe, Zambia, as well as Ghana, saying no to mineral deals because it was about extraction in return for healthcare programs and so forth. And frankly, I'm sure a lot of you in the room know that you've been very vocal about the kind of bullying tactics, the coercive tactics that have been used by the West, specifically the US. And at this point in time, we know that Africa is still being viewed as a place where people can extract. But African leaders are saying no. Also threats about sanctions consistently, not only against African nations, but other countries. Rwanda yourselves are dealing with US sanctions since March this year with the issue regarding the DRC. Take me through how you're dealing with this new geopolitical tension where there's a belief that might is right and the big can control, everyone else.
Well, it's a crisis in a sense, but brought about by the same thing, Africa not leveraging our capacity, our potential, our, energy of the people of our continent is just locked out there. And it's a situation where the powers that be are holding a whip in their hands. They're using a stick to beat up whoever they want to beat up in order to... They are no longer even hiding it. It's just in the open. It's like in the situation you're talking about. we have in the region of Congo and the other crises that also, in a way, involve Rwanda and other countries in our region. Yeah, sanctions. One has, first of all, are they justified? And it is not just in this case of Rwanda, but in other cases. Sometimes sanctions are just applied in a case of the one who provides less than the other. Yes, so it goes in the favor of the highest bidder. When somebody knows they will extract more from a certain place, they will be more favorable to that place, even if they are the ones in the wrong.
Do you believe that all roads lead to mineral deals? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it is in the open. I don't have to say much. And in some cases, it operates like in the very old days. There is a lot of cynicism in this. In the old days, the kings and so on and so forth used to give their in-laws, their children, powers to say, go and control something somewhere. And that's happening today here.
Yeah.
Yes, they just give somebody, say, go and get whatever you want to, and do whatever you want to do in that region. That is how Africa is treated. So these powers you see that come here lecturing people on democracy, human rights, and they are doing it with one arm, and the other, they are just taking away everything that people own. So, and this is what is critical. This is why Africa, leaders of Africa, some of whom are here, are brothers, and the CEOs and other Africans, I think we need to give ourselves value of some kind. We can't just be people who are waiting to be ripped off by somebody who is shrewd enough and has the power to come. No, we must be able to say no.
And we've seen those no's. We've seen some of those. I mean, do you believe, sanctions are used, a coercive method to get countries to capitulate. Are you going to capitulate?
I never capitulated in a worse situation. This is not a bad situation as such. Well, it hurts, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what it is meant to do. It is meant, sanctions or different measures are meant to hurt people. So in a way, we are hurt. Mm. But I think we would be hurt more by not doing what we are doing. So it's always, you make a calculation. Yes. So, and it is not so difficult to say no. In fact, it costs more to say yes to the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So we are here, but all these things come to pass in one form or another. Even those who have been given the gift of messing us up, one day they will not live long enough to see the gains from exploiting people, doing unjust things. So I think each one of us, countries in Africa, and mainly and most importantly together, there is a lot we can do to raise Africa, to raise ourselves to the level where it should be, and don't mind about these powers that think they own the world and the heaven and everything else.